Alright, everybody. Hello. We're playing Victoria 2, or we're not going to play Victoria 2. Basically, thought I'd go through and look at some games that I've played here in Victoria 2, because I have played a few, and I've done a pretty good job in some of them. We're going to start out here with South Africa. Because originally, I think a lot of people are drawn to play as the Boer republics in Victorian 2 because they're in a very unique position at the start of the game. A very small minority population is actually like an accepted pop, right? The majority of your population is not your culture, right? As you can see here, only like 9 or 10%. You have a couple of custom decisions, the Great Trek, that gives you immigrant attraction, but in my experience, this doesn't work. And just the Boers in general are a very interesting sort of group of people historically. So I think a lot of people want to play as these guys. Unfortunately, it's not very easy. Because you can play as Transvaal. Transvaal is the easiest, and you can conquer, Orange. And they've got good RG. That's another thing. The resources in these provinces are really good. You have coal, you have steel, and then the most important one is you have gold or precious metals. And these will subsidize your economy for a long ass time. They're in a really interesting position, and I would love to, have a successful game as them. Unfortunately, um, that's just not, that's not, you don't usually do really well as the Boers. The Boers kind of suck. So, what's the next best thing? Is releasing yourself from the UK as South Africa, right? Because you have cores on all of this land, but you don't have to deal with the British. They're a huge problem playing as the Boers. You're stuck with them on your border, and so I decided to play as South Africa. Now South Africa, you're in a great spot. I mean, really. I mean, any nation you release from the UK, you're in a great spot in Victoria too. But in South Africa in particular, you have, like I said, you have a lot of natural resources, and because you release yourself, you start out with HM's government, which is huge, right? But you don't have to deal with laissez-faire. You can go straight to state capitalism or interventionism, whatever you please. The thing in South Africa is that it's pretty easy to start out as. You just kind of build up, but eventually you're gonna want to expand. And the real goal when you're playing in South Africa is Africa. One of the mechanics in Victoria 2 is having a connected port. It's having a port that is, directly connected to your capital province, and that gives you more colonial power, gives you more ships. So like it's really important to get connected ports. That's like one reason why Spain can become really strong. All they have to do is take Gibraltar, and then they get all of this, African land, and they can turn that into connected ports. I've noticed the same thing with Persia. I played as them a couple of times. It's a very similar situation. This was the first game I played. As you can see, I did a pretty good job. I mean, this is just from a border gore sort of perspective. I think I did a good job here in this game. But there are a few caveats that obviously, you want to take this over here in Zanzibar from Oman normally, but I think it just looks disgusting. I mean, look at this. The Dutch have taken everything. This is just awful. Very similar countries, the Boers and the Dutch. Then up here in Ethiopia, Djibouti is always free. Basically, for some reason in Victorian 2, the AI does not colonize land that has another nation's core on it. For instance, they'll never colonize this inland part of Liberia because Liberia has a core on it. Don't ask me why. I think it's the same. Well, it's not. No, never mind. Well, I don't know why they do that up here with the US, but they never do it down here, right? Doesn't make any sense. In this game, I was just able to get, the southern part of Africa and this province over here. I think it's like Guangdong, southern China, which is pretty good. Usually, if you're going to go into East Asia, I recommend going into Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and southern China, just because they have so many pops. They've got good RGOs down here, like cotton, resources and some tropical wood and stuff like that, and then just a massive number of pops. But this was my first game in South Africa. I did okay. This is another game I did, and as you can see, I got a little crazy here. I just went ahead into Ethiopia as soon as I could, conquering parts of Egypt, because I figured if I'm gonna be an African nation, might as well target Africa. I think this is a later save from the same. Yeah, and ended up being pretty gross. I mean, this is disgusting. Let's be honest here. Um, and I think this, yeah. I mean, you get, of course, you have to get Yemen. I mean, that's imperative. But yeah, I don't think I actually went east in this game. I just confined myself to this sort of Africa, South Asia general area. Yeah, one problem that the French had in this game was just constant communist rebels popping up because obviously the majority of the pops here are not French culture, so they had massive issues with all that stuff. Yeah, and this is the final one. Yeah, I ended up at war with the entire planet. It kind of sucked, but then there's my really successful one. I think that's this last one here. And you start off like any other. I didn't go for Ethiopia. It's just too much. But one thing I learned, and this is the beginning of colonization phase, right, is you want to get a lot of boats. Want to get a lot of boats and colonial power. But you want to get a lot of boats, and you can get ironclads. Ironclads like the most efficient. You get the most colonial power per ironclad. Like it's the most efficient boat you can build. But I found just build commerce raiders. Just go hardcore because you only need to build up a couple times. They seem, even though the ironclads are the most cost efficient for colonial power, the commerce raiders seem to be the most cost efficient for money, right? Because the ironclads and stuff, I don't know why, but they always seem to cost me a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah, in this game, France went crazy. I did a pretty good job of getting connected ports. So I ended up getting this over here in like Gabon and connecting it all up. And this was this is probably my most successful South Africa game. In addition to all this stuff over here and all this stuff in Asia, I was also over here in southern China. And like I said, this is a great place to conquer. If you're ever playing a game of Victoria 2 and you want to make your colonial empire just a little bit bigger, you can always come here. So we'll go ahead and load the final save here. So unfortunately, and I don't know why it's like this, but the primary pop for South Africa is British, and then the accepted pop is Boer. So you end up just having tons of British people all around. I wanted to see something here, because I'm going to teach you guys something very important about Victoria 2, and that is the Craftsman glitch. Basically, if in the course of you playing Victoria 2 and you're looking around the culture map mode and you see some like weird idiosyncratic cultures, particularly over here in the New World. So like, well, why is there 36? Why is the plurality of people in Utah Texan? Or well, we know why this is here, but there are sometimes especially when you're playing as a New World nation and trying to attract as many immigrants as possible, you'll get these weird cultural enclaves in different places. And usually that's from the Craftsman glitch. When you're playing Victoria 2, if you have Craftsman pops, for some reason the game does not check what culture the pops are when the game elevates them to Craftsman. Okay, so if, for instance, you have a laborer and they are an African miner culture and they get promoted to being a craftsman, they won't keep their African miner culture. They'll keep whatever culture is the primary culture in that, whatever the majority of craftsmen in that province are. So, like, if you go to Transvaal, you go to Pretoria, the vast majority are Boer. Vast majority are Boer. The British pops here are probably from immigration. But you see this one, 100% British. I mean, that's ridiculous. 100% Boer. I mean, now you're sort of getting a better picture of it. 100% British, 100% British, 100% British. And this is a problem. I mean, I mean, look, all of these pops, I built factories over here, and I think this is Kenya, East Africa, and they've all assimilated to cultures that are not mine. I mean, in some of these cases, it's British culture, but still, this is worth keeping an eye on. I mean, it's kind of staggering. 95% Sotho. There are probably like British and Boer pops who elevated to Sotho culture. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, or Hotza. You know, I mean, it's crazy to look at. And you can do this in any of your games. Just go for the Craftsman pops and just look at, the distribution. Now, some of these, like, smaller minority cultures, it's like, Jesus, look at this. Yeah, see? I mean, it's so blatant, this glitch. Um, I've never taken the time to actually look at this in a game. I mean, obviously in these provinces, the majority culture is like Zulu anyway, um, right? But still, the fact that Craftsman really put the glitch on display. I think I did a pretty good job in this game. I mean, we're number 5 GP. Our population is massive. The vast majority of our culture is not even a primary or a secondary. We've got 2.1% Boer, 8.3% British. So that's what, 10.4% accepted culture, and the rest of the people are like Chinese and Africans. I mean, I think that's amazing. I that's one of my favorite parts about playing Victoria 2 is just seeing how screwed up the culture map ends up being. I wish there was a religious map mode because I'm sure that would also be kind of amusing to look at. This is a little spicy. Oh, I think yeah, I did this. Yeah, okay. There's a decision in Victoria 2 called the Balfour Declaration, which lets you release Israel if you're a great power. So I conquered Israel and I released them just for kicks and giggles. This is my most successful game in South Africa. Highly recommend you guys check this nation out. Not a lot of people play as nations released from Great Britain, but as far as ones to play as, I mean, this is one of the best ones. Also, yeah, this, it ends up being kind of cursed because you just release everything from the UK to weaken them as much as possible. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next nation, which I do believe is Brazil.